Hello, my name is Tara Burrell, and I'll be doing a presentation on the Japanese tea ceremony. My undergraduate degree is going to be from NAU. It's a Bachelor's of University Studies with a double minor in anthropology and sociology. My thesis statement for this project is matcha tea from Japan enhances nutrition in humans as ancient populations thrive for hundreds of years consuming this superfood. This presentation will be outlining the Japanese tea ceremony in detail and connecting it to academic disciplines sociology and ethnography for a truly cohesive interdisciplinary approach. To Japan, from the disciplines we will be studying matcha from, it is not about the nutrition itself, but about culture and tradition. The beginning of matcha got its claim to fame from the traditional Japanese tea ceremony, which has been a widely practiced tradition for over 500 years. Despite its Chinese origins, matcha tea made its way to Japan and became a highly ritualized ceremonial experience. It became more than just a superfood that enhanced one's mental functioning. Senrikyu is the founder of the principles of Chanoyu, which is the basis of the traditional Japanese tea ceremony. Matcha tea is a green tea which is finely ground into a fine powder, then whisked with hot water to create a frothy tea. So that image to the right there, which was from the Urasenkei Los Angeles website, which is a school based on Senrikyu's traditions. And actually, I have some here. You can see what matcha tea looks like. This green fine powder here. So Senrikyu, he was born in 1522, ended up dying in 1591, but he is also known as the founder of tea. Its roots are in Sado, or the way of tea. These roots include philosophy, religion, art, ethics, and morality. The tea ceremony is deeply rooted in philosophy and religion, as Rikyu was considered a tea man of great awakening during his time. To grasp the importance of the Japanese tea ceremony from a cultural perspective, sociology and ethnography will be used to examine the intricacies of how matcha impacted Japan overall. So these are the underlying Zen principles for the Japanese tea ceremony. It was created by Senrikyu, the founder, and they are Wa, which is a harmony, Sei, purity, Kei, respect, and Jaku, tranquility. I apologize in advance. I do not know Japanese, so the pronunciation may be a little bit off throughout this presentation because there's quite a few Japanese words I'll be attempting. The tea ceremony itself is symbolic of Japanese culture. It is rich in symbolism with the performative act, nonverbal communication, Zen aesthetics, interactions with the host and guests, and self-realization. The entire tea ceremony is broken up into phases: arrival, seke iri, which is entering into one's seat; shozumi, arranging the charcoal, which is used to heat the tea; kaiseki, tea treats; nakadachi, middle standing; koicha, drinking the thick tea; gozumi, pipe and tobacco; usha, drinking the thinner tea, which is the one we're most used to; then okueri, closing of the ceremony. This is a photo that I got from the Sura Enke LA website. It's an old photo, obviously, of a Japanese tea ceremony. It's a little grainy. So here's the first phase, which is the seke iri. This is the start of the tea ceremony. It means to enter one's seat. To start, the guests will arrive and prop their sandals against the wall of the tea room. After this, they will crawl through a very small entrance into the room where the tea ceremony is held. Crawling on the floor while entering the room is set to signify humility and an important moral in Japanese culture. The guests then admire the art scroll hung near the alcove while kneeling. All guests then enter their seat, and the last guest closing the door, signifying that the host can arrive now. Second phase is shozumi. This is the term that stands for arranging of the charcoal, which is used to heat the tea. Once the host is signified to enter the room via the door closing, as stated before in the seke iri phase, the host will exchange greetings. He then retreats to receive the charcoal, tongs, and incense burner. The host will then arrange the charcoal in a delicate and artistic way and light the fire. Guests admire the fire, and then the incense holder is passed around from the principal guest down to the last guest while the host leaves to prepare and serve the small meal. Now, phase 3 is the kaiseki. This meal is called a frugal meal, and each guest is served a small tray with separate bowls of a small serving of rice, soup, and vegetables or fish, along with some sake, which is a Japanese rice wine, served warm usually. This dish is meant to be fresh and seasonal. The host does not enjoy the food with the guests, but instead stays around to serve sake and clean up the trays when the guests have finished. Once everyone is finished with their kaiseki, the omogashi, or moist sweets, are brought out. This usually is served in an individual box for each guest, and after enjoying the sweet treat, they go to the waiting arbor. Phase 4 is the nakadashi. This phase is often called the middle standing, where you can kind of go stretch your legs. They talk politely with other guests, and of course, avoid the forbidden talk of politics, which is usually good to do most times. A gong is rung, and this signifies that the guests to come back into the tea room and enter into the same way they did prior, propping the sandals on the wall, crawling into the tea room, signifying the importance of humility yet again. Phase 5 is the koicha. This term means thick tea. This is the real start of the tea ceremony, in which the thick tea is made and consumed. Matcha tea is mixed with a small amount of water, forming a thick tea. The guests are now back in their seats, and they do not engage in conversation. The room is quiet. The host leaves the room 3 separate times to retrieve the water jar, mizusashi, the tea bowl, tea scoop and caddy, and a bowl for wastewater, kensui. The host will then clean all of the items with the tea cloth while the guests watch in silence. The thick tea is then prepared in a single bowl, matcha powder, and a small amount of water. Each guest, starting from the principal guest, drinks from the bowl until the final guest empties the bowl with the last sip, after wiping the edge of the bowl. Phase 6 is Gozumi. This phase parallels the Shozumi phase, as this is when the coals are now relit. The burning incense is replaced with a tray of charcoal and a bamboo ashtray and a pipe with a small amount of tobacco. Phase 7 is Usha. This part of the Japanese tea ceremony includes drinking the thin tea, or the normal matcha tea we are accustomed to seeing. This is where the matcha powder is whisked with the bamboo whisk, which I have here so that you can see, and the water into a froth. And then the chawan, which is a traditional matcha bowl, and I wanted to show you what that looks like here. It's quite large. I have actually some matcha in the bottom there, so you can actually see what a chawan traditionally looks like. The bowl is turned as in to offer a drink to the god, and then is served to the guests. Dry sweets, or higashi, are consumed as a snack while the matcha is being prepared. During this phase, conversation is allowed. The guests will consume their own bowl of tea this time, and they can ask for more if they choose, and admire the chawan that the tea was served in. Phase 8 is the okureri. This is the farewell of the tea ceremony. When the guests have all finished, they examine the tea container and scoop, and the host removes them in reversed order than they came in. The guests exit the tea room and then turn to the building and bow to it as they are leaving. The host watches his guests leave and waits to retreat into the tea room again until all of the guests are out of sight for respect. Now, sociology. These are the next few slides because this is part of my interdisciplinary approach to the Japanese tea ceremony. This is my first academic discipline. The first one we are going to talk about is Senrikyu's lineage chart here. I actually have a picture of it here on the side from the Uroseke, Japan website. So this is the original school that was formed in Japan after Senrikyu's death. And as you can see at the top, the founder, and it goes down to show his lineage and who has taken over each school. So this school has been headed ever since his death by his direct line of ancestry. Now they have schools all over the world. They have one in Arizona, Phoenix. They have some in Los Angeles and all over. The entire Japanese tea ceremony observed is followed precisely as its originator Senrikyo has created it hundreds of years before. This ceremony is significant as it holds underlying cultural values that are inherent to the Japanese culture, such as etiquette, grace, and appreciation for minimalism. Japanese culture has an appreciation for refinement and ritual. The tea ceremony epitomizes this, as every movement, object, and order, even down to the conversation, has detailed instructions and meaning. This is why this particular ceremony has schools worldwide depicting the formalities and order of the Japanese tea ceremony. Every single movement, such as the folding of a napkin in a particular way, the art on the wall, and the order in which the tea vessels are brought into the room, have reasoning and rules. By achieving such perfection over this ritual, it is said to bring the mental state into a higher order and can help you become aware of your inner self. With grace, every movement is done in a graceful manner. Now this ties with etiquette, as every step is detailed and is to follow a set of explicit rules. When guests arrive, the way they kneel at the table is done with refinement. They kneel down softly to ensure their kimono is pressed flat and no distracting creases are shown. Everything is done in this way to ensure that the focus is on the tea ceremony, the significance behind each movement, and the tea itself. Minimalism. So in Japan, cleanliness and minimalism are important culturally. During the tea ceremony, the material world is meant to be left behind, and a connection with nature is something that is important to be found again. In the kaiseki phase of the tea ceremony, this is where the fresh and seasonal food is served. The focus is considering this a frugal meal. This can bring people who are accustomed to fancier meals or people who indulge in specific cravings often to lower their ego and again become more aware of their inner self. Keeping the meal minimal can also allow the guests to cleanse their palate and humble themselves to the frugal and minimal meal of small bowls of rice, soup, and then vegetables or fish. By consuming seasonal food, this also connects one with nature. Now, Japanese society, Aimoto, the head of a school that teaches the way of tea is called the Aimoto. This Aimoto system is a system that is taught at a particular school. The system is in place so that the Japanese tea ceremony can persevere through many generations and be consistent and culturally correct. From an ethnographic point of view, this is the second academic discipline for the Japanese tea ceremony. We have a question of, is this health-driven or a cultural ritual? So the science behind the claim that matcha powder packs a lot of antioxidants. Matcha powder, which is used to make the green tea in the Japanese tea ceremony, is the entire green tea that is ground up into a fine powder. So you're consuming the entire tea leaf, which means you're getting a lot more antioxidants than just, steeping it through a tea bag and then throwing it out like the traditional green tea. Matcha tea, you're consuming the entire leaf, so you are actually getting a lot more antioxidants. And a study done at the University of Colorado showed that matcha had 200 times antioxidants than actual regular green tea. An interesting fact I learned is that in Japan, they have the highest population of people over the age of 65 in the world, and I wonder if this is a testament to their consumption of this matcha superfood. Sado is the way of tea, so this is a form of rich Japanese culture that is unlike anything else in the world. The tea master that created the Japanese tea ceremony is Senrikyu, who is known as the founder of tea, and his roots are in Sado. These roots include philosophy, religion, art, ethics, and morality. The tea ceremony is deeply rooted in philosophy and religion, as the original tea master, Rikyu, was considered a tea man of great awakening during his time. Asymmetry is the first aspect of Sado, which is very important to the Japanese culture. They value the irregular and absence of symmetry. For example, in the Chowan bowls, you can see that each of the edges are asymmetrical. The color is asymmetrical, the shape. So it makes for more of an interesting and natural look. Simplicity is next, and that is very important. This is quite opposite of Western ideals. Westerners are more focused on gaudy decor, consuming objects and prized possessions. For the Japanese culture, their values include tidiness and embodying the Zen ideals of unattachment. Naturalness is referring to not being artificial. This also relates to the tea vessels and utensils that are of asymmetrical shape. These vessels are made by an artisan and they're very natural, made from clay from our earth, shaped by human hands, glazed imperfectly, and the colors are unique. This is another connection with nature. Unworldliness. This is the state of leaving the vulgar world behind of politics, work, envy. For example, Senrikyu said, "I awakened to the one rule of the heart." And this statement is meant to mean that he achieved the status of one unworldliness and fully detached himself and can help others do the same. Lastly, tranquility. This is being in a state of calm and patient mindset, which is essential during the Japanese tea ceremony. So the connection between the two for sociology and ethnography, every aspect of the Sado culture works with the other to create the complete way of tea. From an ethnographic point of view, asymmetry, simplicity, naturalness, unworldliness, and tranquility all need to be achieved to be in compliance with the tradition set by Senrikyu. The matcha tea itself, while it is a form of massive antioxidant absorption, can be attributed to longer life and is not the reasoning behind the consumption of this beverage. The importance lies in the connection to the Japanese culture and how the tea ceremony embodies the true essence of their society and values. From a sociological perspective, the tea ceremony impacted their society from the Urasenke schools birthed from lineage of Senrikyu and the Zen principles. The tea ceremony embodies. Etiquette, grace, and minimalism are key in Japanese culture, and are fully present in the tea ceremony. It is no wonder the ceremony has lasted over 500 years and will continue to represent Japanese society in its entirety for hundreds of more years. And that is the end. Here's my reference page. Thank you.